Hey there, my name is ZW Buckley and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to transform your Ableton Live sampler workflow forever. The 5 techniques that I'm going to teach you are simple but easy to miss and ultimately are going to unlock new music making possibilities for you. And if you know any of these techniques as you're watching, you're going to nod along and be like, yep, yeah. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Building a multi-sampled instrument in Sampler can feel quite tedious. You have to use this small little slider to tune each sample individually, and you have to grab these tiny brackets to set the ranges of your samples so that they don't overlap. Except not really. The first technique that I'm going to show you is how to do this so much faster. In the key editor window of the Zones tab, I'm going to right-click and I'm going to select Large to make this more visible. I'm going to highlight the sample that I want to tune, and then I'm going to bring my mouse over the note that I want it tuned to while still remaining over its corresponding green bar. Then if I hit Option or Alt click, we can see that the R, which indicates the root, has changed and shifted position to the tuning of our new sample, and it's also reflected down here in the sample properties window. And I can quickly go through and repeat this process for every single one of my samples. And it is so much faster this way. And now that I have all of my samples tuned, all I need to do is right-click again in this key zone editor, and I will select Distribute Ranges Around Root Key. And now my samples are automatically distributed across the entire keyboard with no overlap. And if I play some nice big chords, we're going to see that it works perfectly. Speaking of tuning, the second sampler technique that I want to show you is how to pitch shift individual looping segments of your sample independently from the rest of the sample. This might be the coolest technique that I show you in this video. In the Sample Properties tab, some of the most important controls available are the sustain mode toggles. You can choose to have your sample loop forwards or loop forwards and backwards, but what you might not have known is that you can detune your sample loop separate from the rest of the sample. So I'll go ahead and I will close off our bracket here. And next to where it says crossfades, which I'll add a couple, there's this detune control. Now it's set to tune in cents, so it's really designed for fine tuning, so you may not have looked too carefully at this. However, you can go plus or minus 1200 cents, and 100 cents equals a semitone. So that means that you can tune your sustain loop a whole octave up or down. So I'm going to go ahead and set it to 1200 cents or an entire octave. If your instrument calls for using a release loop in any way, you can do it for that as well. But now let's hear what it sounds like. It's literally so cool. My favorite sustain mode is loop back and forth because that little bit of reverse playback that we get. But the third technique that I want to show you is how you can get reverse playback in Sampler anytime you want by essentially flipping a switch. Amongst the many controls on the Sample Properties tab of Sampler, one of my absolute favorite is the reverse toggle. Now you might have missed the existence of this toggle amongst all of the various controls down here, but it's really quite simple. It just reverses the playback of the sample every time you hit a note. But what's cool about this particular toggle is that you can map it to a macro. So I'm just going to go ahead and right click on the device title bar and I'm going to group Sampler onto itself. I'm then going to right click on the reverse toggle and map it to macro 1. Now, whenever you map an on-off toggle device like this to a macro, I recommend opening up the mappings menu and then setting the minimum value to 1 and the maximum value to 0. This way, if you just toggle this, any value above 0, it turns it on, hit 0, turns it off. This is really quite useful if you want to use this for something like live performance. And depending on the type of sample that you have loaded into Sampler, this macro will practically give you a second instrument. Here's the sound played forwards. And then when we toggle on the reverse. Sticking with the theme of macros, the next technique that I want to show you is how you can set up a macro so that you can adjust the start point of all of your samples at once in Sampler. In Sampler, beyond setting the individual start point of your samples, there's no immediately obvious way to change that sample start point for all of your samples at once or automate that parameter should you want to. But you can actually set up a macro to do this quite easily. To do so, I'm going to head over to the Modulation tab, and I'm going to engage the auxiliary envelope. This is just an extra assignable envelope for you to map to whatever you want. And one of the parameters here from the drop-down menu is sample offset. And what that means is that this parameter lets you change or offset the starting point of your sample. So now that I have it selected, I'm going to set the range to 100, and then the parameter that we actually want to map to a macro to be able to control this starting point is the peak of our envelope, so long as our attack is instantaneous. So I'm going to map peak to macro 2, and I'll just call it sample start. So now I'm going to go back to the sample tab, and let's set our sample start time to about 30%. And now we're going to see that sample playback is not going to start at the beginning, it's going to start partway through here. At this point, you know enough to start building some really advanced instruments with Sampler. So the final technique then that I want to show you today is how you can share your instruments that you've created with Sampler with live users who don't have Suite or Sampler available to them. So I've gone ahead and finished this instrument by setting up a few more macros that are controlling various parameters. I've set up a pitch envelope to act as like a pitch windup of sort because I'm really leaning into this whole reverse thing. The stereo width controls random pan as well as the phase of the LFO. The filter frequency, just a low pass filter, and then the LFO is just routed to control the modulation of the filter. And then we have an amp release here and just an overall instrument volume. Now there's a reason why I'm walking you through all of these macros. So if I right click on Sampler's device title bar, the very bottom option of the context menu is convert sampler to simpler. I'm going to go ahead and click that. Now in case you didn't know for some reason, simpler has a much different feature set than Sampler, and about half of the parameters that I have mapped to macros here are not available within Simpler, but we can still use these macros exactly as mapped. And because this instrument only uses Sampler, you could literally share this with somebody who uses Ableton Live Lite and they would be able to open it. And why wouldn't you want to do that when you've made an instrument that sounds this cool? I hope that you do make Sampler instruments that you want to share with others now that I officially deem you a Sampler power user. But genuinely, Sampler might be my favorite instrument in all of Ableton Live. It's complex, but that complexity is there for you as a resource so that you can express yourself fully in the instruments that you create. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. I'm working really hard to grow this channel to 50,000 subscribers by the end of 2026, and it's your support entirely that makes it possible. Till next time.